Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a sophomore here, and I'll be bringing the word today. So, the other day I was wondering if I could go to just any fast food restaurant in the world to take the best main course, side, drink, and dessert I wanted wherever I go. And here's what I landed on. For the main course, I decided to go with the obvious and get a Whataburger burger because it's really nothing else really compares to that. Then the side I went for, it really came down to either the fries from McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, and I took McDonald's because it was better. So then it was the drink. And drink, it's not really that special. We can go from place to place, but I decided to take sweet tea from Chicken Express. And then dessert. Dessert was obvious for me because nothing really compares to a CC cinnamon roll. They're just the best. So I'm not telling you this because my birthday's coming up and now you know where to take me to lunch. I'm telling you this because the whole premise of that scenario is picking and choosing. And with our God, we don't have to pick and choose what we want because God is everything we could want in a God, in a Father, in a friend. And I'm going to tell you what those attributes are that God has. I think despite God being everything we could want, we still so often think we get to pick and choose. That we get to pick what parts of God we want and what parts we don't. And I'm hoping that by the end of today, y'all leave knowing that you shouldn't even want to pick and choose because everything you could want is what God has. The attributes that we're talking about today are pretty well highlighted in Exodus 14:21. It says, Then Moses stretched out his hand. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove back the sea. The Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. So a little background on that. The Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, and God was bringing them out of slavery, and they had escaped slavery and were going on their way out of slavery, and they came across the Red Sea. And it's hard to get across that, so God parted the Red Sea for them to get through. And I think the attributes of God that we're talking about today are well highlighted. So before we start, I'm going to pray and then we'll take it. Dear God, I thank you for this time we have to just learn more about you and just talk about you and live a merciful day, God. I thank you for being a good God that we want in our lives, God, and I pray this all in your name. Amen. So the first point I have is God is an omnipresent God. And omnipresent might not mean anything to you, but omnipresent means all present. God is always present. He is everywhere you are, and He is everywhere you're not. And that's important because there's times in my life, and there's times in a lot of people's lives that you feel alone, and there's times when it's just tough times sometimes, and having an all-loving God being there with you in those times, it's comforting. And going back to the Israelites in the Red Sea, I think God's being omnipresent is highlighted there because the Israelites had just escaped slavery. They had been enslaved their entire lives, and they finally were out of it and on their way to freedom. sorry, they didn't know that was going to happen. And God was there with them in that moment, and he parted it for them, being there with them. And so often in tough times, you feel alone, and you don't know where to go. And God is there with you in those times, and He's creating paths for you in those times. So that was point one. And my second point was God is omniscient. And omniscient means all knowing. And unlike us, God knows everything that is going to happen in your lives. And not knowing what's coming is scary. And not knowing what you have in front of you can be scary at times. But a good God knows what we don't. He knows what's coming, and He has a plan to get you out of those hard times, even if you don't. And that's now, the Israelites, I'm sure they thought they were done. I'm sure they thought they had gotten out of slavery and that they were just on their way to freedom. They had been enslaved in Egypt their entire lives, so they had no way of knowing what was outside of Egypt. And so they were going, and they come across the Red Sea, and they had no clue what was going to be there. Moses had no clue what was going to be there, but God did. And He had a plan to get them out of that time. A verse that talks about this is Psalm 77:19. It says, "Your road led through the sea, your pathway through the mighty waters, a pathway no one knew was there." No one knew, but God knew, and He got them out of there. And I know that some of y'all might be in a time right now, and some of y'all might be approaching a time where you don't know an escape from it, and you don't know how to get out. And you have a God that knew you were going to approach this time in your life, that knew this was going to happen, and He knows how to get you out of it. So, yeah. My third point is God is omnipotent. Omnipotent means all powerful. So God is an all powerful God. God made this whole world, this whole everything out of nothing. And so that is extreme power. That's power that we cannot comprehend. And that's power that you can have with you. That's power that, So the Red Sea is 190 miles long, which is, or wide. And that's what they had to cross. They had to get across 190 miles. And if the Israelites were to walk nonstop, never stopping one time, it would have taken them over 3 days to cross the Red Sea. They couldn't stop to sleep. They could, but if they did, that would just extend their time. And so that's a very, that's no easy task. Parting 190 miles of water takes some real power, and that's what God has, and that's what you can have in your life. So all the characteristics I just presented to y'all just circle back to the love of God. God loved us so much that He sent down His Son to die for us, but not stay dead. Come back 3 days later and defeat sin, defeat death, and so that all you have to do is believe, and you will spend eternity in the presence of an all-powerful, all-knowing, present God. So, I don't know if you have come to that step in your life already, but I encourage you, if you haven't, to think if the God I just described is a God you want to spend eternity with. I know I do, right? And maybe you have. Uh, maybe you have chosen to make that proclamation in your life. And I want to go back to what I started with saying. And I said, so often we think we get to choose. So often we think we get to choose what we want from God and what we don't want. And I just encourage you all to wonder or to think, do you really even want to be taking bits and pieces of God, or do you want all of it? And if you think you want all of it, then I would encourage you to try and live that out, in your daily life. So, like I said earlier, if you do think you want to spend eternity with the God I described, then I'm here to talk to. I mean, no one's here to talk to. Everyone, all the adults around this room are more than willing to talk to you about that step in your life. And I really encourage y'all, if you have that calling on your heart, to come talk to one of us, and we can get you through that. So that's all I have. I'm gonna pray us out, and then I guess we can go grab pizza. Dear God, I want to thank you again for just giving us this opportunity. I want to thank you for putting us all here today to hear this message, God. And I thank you for just giving us ears to hear this message, God.